At the edge of a deep green forest, where tall trees whispered to the wind and a wide river curved around fertile land, stood the peaceful village of Mokala. The people of Mokala lived close to the land. At sunrise, farmers walked to their fields with baskets and hoes. Women gathered at the river to wash clothes and share laughter. Children ran along the dusty paths, chasing goats and playing under the watchful eyes of their elders. In the center of the village stood a great baobab tree. Beneath its wide branches, the elders met each evening to tell stories, settle disputes, and pass on the wisdom of their ancestors. Among the people of Mokala, one man was known by every voice in the village. His name was Bambi. Bambi was the finest hunter Mokala had ever known. He was tall and strong, with eyes that missed nothing and ears that could hear even the quiet movement of animals deep in the forest. But what made Bambi truly respected was not just his skill with a spear or his sharp aim with a bow, it was his character. He was humble. Each morning, before the first rooster crowed, Bambi would step quietly into the forest. By the time the sun climbed high above the trees, he often returned carrying meat for the village. Sometimes it was antelope, other times it was bush pig or large forest deer. Whenever he returned, the villagers gathered around him with smiles and gratitude. But Bambi would always say the same words. "The forest feeds us all. I only follow the path it shows me." Because of Bambi, the cooking fires in Mokala rarely went out, and the children of the village grew strong. The chief of Mokala, Chief Nagalu, admired Bambi greatly. The chief was an old man with a voice that carried wisdom and authority. One evening, as the drums echoed through the village and the scent of roasted meat filled the air, the chief stood beneath the great baobab tree and called Bambi forward.
"My people," the chief announced, raising his staff. "This man has served Mokala with courage and loyalty. His hands are steady, his heart is generous, and because of him, our village never sleeps hungry." The crowd cheered and clapped as Bambi bowed his head respectfully. But while many celebrated him, not every heart in the village was joyful. Among the hunters of Mokala were 3 men who once carried the village's pride: Tano, Keba, and Muta. Before Bambi became famous, these men were the hunters everyone praised. Now things had changed. Every song, every story, every celebration seemed to speak only of Bambi. At first, the 3 hunters tried to ignore it, but jealousy is like a thorn hidden in the foot. It grows more painful the longer it remains. One evening, the 3 men sat beside a small fire at the edge of the village. Tano stared into the flames. "Everywhere I go, people speak of Bambi. Even the chief listens to him more than to us," Keba added bitterly. Muta clenched his fists. "Soon they will forget we were ever hunters." For a moment, none of them spoke. The night insects buzzed around them, and the forest stood dark and quiet nearby. Then Tano leaned forward and said in a low voice, "There is only one way to stop this." The others looked at him, and slowly a dangerous plan formed among them. A few days later, the 3 hunters approached Bambi with friendly smiles. "Brother," said Keba, placing a hand on Bambi's shoulder, "we have discovered a new part of the forest where many large animals roam. Come with us tomorrow so we may hunt together." Bambi smiled warmly. He believed that hunters should stand together like brothers. "I will come," he said. Before the sun rose the next morning, the four men entered the forest. A cool mist hung between the trees, and the ground was soft with fallen leaves. Birds sang gently as the forest slowly woke. They walked for hours, deeper into the woods than Bambi had ever gone with them before. Eventually they reached a quiet clearing surrounded by tall trees. The air felt still, and even the birds had grown silent. Bambi stopped and looked around. "This place feels strange," he said softly. The three hunters moved behind him. When Bambi turned, he saw that their smiles had disappeared. Their faces were hard, filled with something dark. For a moment, the forest seemed to hold its breath. "You have taken our place," Tano said quietly. Bambi looked at them with sadness rather than anger. "I took nothing," he replied calmly. "The forest gives to anyone who respects it." But jealousy had already clouded their hearts. What happened next was swift beneath the tall trees, hidden from the eyes of the village. Days passed, and Bambi did not return to Mokala. The villagers began to worry. Bambi had never stayed away from the village this long. Soon a group of hunters and elders went searching for him. Deep within the forest, they found the quiet clearing, and there, beneath the tall trees, they discovered what had happened. The news returned to Mokala like a heavy storm cloud. The village mourned the loss of the man who had fed them and protected them for so long. When the truth about the jealous hunters came to light, the chief called the entire village to gather beneath the great baobab tree. Chief Nalu stood silently for a moment before speaking. "My people," he said slowly. "Bambi was a great hunter, but more importantly, he was a man with a good heart. Jealousy has turned brothers against one another." The villagers listened in silence. "Remember this," the chief continued. "When envy enters the heart, it destroys not only the one it hates, but also the one who carries it." From that day forward, the story of Bambi the village hunter was told to every child in Mokala. Hunters who entered the forest spoke his name with respect. Elders repeated his story beside evening fires, reminding the young that skill should bring unity, not rivalry. And so, even though jealousy ended Bambi's life, his name lived on in the wisdom of the village. Moral of the story: jealousy can destroy friendship and brotherhood, but humility and kindness create a legacy that never dies.